Hello viewers, Super GT here. Recently I lined up on the grid at Silverstone for my very first ever car races. Now the racing will be very close, very chaotic, but very fun. There will be a lot of learning to do, but not all of it necessarily went to plan. Yes, so I was entered into the BRSCC MX-5 Championship. This is a race at Silverstone, and first of all I'm going to show you the Clubman Races, or Clubman qualifying to begin with. Now Clubman is sort of a level below the main championship, so technically it should be an easier way for me to get to grips with racing a car on an actual circuit. Done a fair amount of sim racing of course in my time, but never set foot on a racing circuit in an actual car until this very moment here, where we drive onto the main circuit in our MX-5. Quite a peculiar feeling, it must be said, given that the F1 drivers race around this very corner here, and here I am in a Mazda MX-5. So in many ways it replicates iRacing in the sense that I'm a rookie and we're starting out in MX-5s, and my main objective really is to get signatures on my license. So in order to get an international license, which is what I'm trying to get, I have to prove myself by doing a certain amount of races in the United Kingdom before I can then progress. So first up here, as I said, qualifying, and it's my first chance really just to get to grips with the car and how it works. It's just a manual 6-speed gearbox, 5-speed gearbox. It's a Mark 1 Mazda MX-5. So I spent a couple of laps here just learning and trying to catch up with some other cars. Main reason being, you want a bit of a slipstream here. This is the back straight on the Silverstone International layout, and as you can see I did get a better exit than the car in front, but also the slipstream, massive toe down this very long straight, and it's certainly going to add or take off a couple of tenths of your lap time. So toe, slipstream, whatever you want to call it, human DRS, very important. Quite a bit of traffic here, but the good thing was that I was actually overtaking people. I know it's only qualifying, but it kind of shows that, right, I'm not the slowest person here. That's always a good sign. So I was getting used to the car. It did feel very loose, it must be said, especially through turns 1 and 2, quite fast corners. Car going quite slow here, I have to go quite narrow into, I believe, Chapel onto the back straight, and running out quite wide, just nipping in before that tyre wall on the back straight. And then before we knew it, the session was over and I had qualified in 9th position out of about 40 cars. So I was quite happy with that, actually.
Sure, it was faster on Friday.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so P9 on the grid, as you can see here on the fence behind me. And I was quite pleased with that. Top 10 in our first qualifying session, and not too bad at all. We're going to try and move forward ideally from this position on the grid. And the main thing I had to really worry about here was the standing grid start. This, again, all of this is kind of new to me, so a lot to learn. Bit of a tyre warming here on the back straight. But the main thing I was worried about, as I said, is the grid start, trying to get this procedure dead right. Holding, from what I've been reliably informed, about 4,000 RPM before dipping the clutch and then onto the throttle. So got to get this one right. The anticipation builds before our first ever start here at Silverstone. Take a look at the lights. They go on and immediately off. Very quick reactions required here, and it wasn't perhaps the best start. As you see, immediately a car overtakes me on the right hand side. That's okay, we've lost one position, P10 at the moment. So around the outside we're just going to hold a nice line here, just keep it nice and safe. In fact, we've been overtaken twice already, but again, it's a fairly long race. It's about 20 minutes or so. I think it's actually 15 minutes I think the race is. So we've got plenty of time here to try to settle into this one and make up some positions. As you can see, very close indeed, and that's the thing about Mazda MX-5s, is that they can be raced right on, right, you know, bumper to bumper. And in fact, you can actually bump draft in these cars. So you can actually go into the back of the car in front, give each other a bit of a boost. So expect to see that throughout the video. So down the back straight, we're going to add a bit of the driver cam here as we head into Stowe corner at the end of the straight. A little bit wide. And just conscious of the car behind. Car in front goes a little bit wide. I go a little bit wide too. Don't have to worry about the track limits as such. Back over to the right hand side here for Vale. Final couple of corners on the circuit. So this isn't the full Silverstone circuit, it's the international layout. So you're only really driving half the circuit, half of the Grand Prix circuit anyway. And that is our first lap completed. And we're going to progress forward slightly here as we go near enough flat out for turn 1 and 2. Not quite flat out. You do have to lift slightly at least for the first corner. Car off to the left hand side. Going to go deep here. There's some cement and dust getting kicked up there from some oil spill earlier in the day. And looking for a move here. The car all over the curb, that blue car there. As we go up the inside and gain a position, it's going to put us, it's going to compromise us slightly onto this straight. But fortunately, I still am in the tow car in front. Very crucial to stay in the slipstream of the cars in front. You see the car behind? Is he going to go for the pass or the bump draft? He's going to go for the pass. I'm not going to defend it. I don't really want to have to defend too soon. I'm going to let the race play out. And of course, let's not forget, let's reiterate that my main aim here is really just to finish the races and to get those signatures. I don't want to cause too much carnage and go flat out for the win. We just want to see the finish line. That's the main priority. And of course to enjoy it. Through Vale into Club Corner at the end of the second lap. So we settled into the race quite nicely. You see the gaps beginning to develop, although this group in front is fairly close knit. As we head through turn 1, again, slight lift through here, over the curb. The car goes very loose. You see the car in front getting a bit of a moment, and not much downforce really to speak of on these Mark 1 Mazda MX-5s. Into turn 3, onto the brakes quite nicely. Looking for that late apex. Get the power down. Is he going to go for this move in front? Not quite. We're going to dip over to the left-hand side as you go over this little crest. Spot your turning in point. Hit the curb on the inside. On the power as early as possible because you've got a very long straight here. And this is where we are going to engage in a bit of bump drafting, I think. As you see, we're very, very close indeed. You see the driver in front as I just bump him. And he just gives a little bit of a thumbs up. I think that was a thumbs up anyway. Hopefully it wasn't a different finger. But I did help him, I think, get that move done. I'm going to try as well to follow him around the outside of the white car. It doesn't quite work out. And now side by side they go into Vale. Who's going to win out here? It's going to be the blue car on the inside, as you'd expect. I'm going to try this one around the outside into Club. Not quite going to work, and I'm going to have to filter back in. No, I'm not. It's going to actually work. Look at that. Get the position around the outside. Good stuff. Then this car is actually willing to work with me. I was quite happy about that. Going to give the thumbs up and try and move forward. I was just trying to think of the bigger picture here as I do briefly go into the back of the car in front. Just wanted to make sure we didn't lose touch with the cars, 2 or 3 positions in front. But then the car here, the blue car, it looked like he missed a shift, and I'm going to take that position quite easily into Vale corner. And here you see the cars behind begin to battle quite a lot, and that just opens up the gap. And that's the thing that you don't really want to do. You don't really want to have to fight so much that you lose the tow. So they've lost the tow, I'd say, to me, and I was able to just clinch onto the cars in front and get away from that group. As you can see in the rearview mirror, they're a bit of a distant speck now. So that part of the race went quite well, and I'm sitting here in about 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm here in about 7th place at the moment. 2 cars here going to go quite defensive, and I just go way too hot into this corner, and it wasn't quite going to work out. Perhaps over relying on the brakes, which just they're not actually that strong. Let's not forget it's quite an old car. So from the 90s, so it's not going to give you the braking force of a GT3 car. So unfortunately I lost the tow of the group in front. As you can see, there's 4 of them in that group. Wasn't really able to fight them. There was a couple of cars we had to lap throughout the race. And I was actually going to have one piece of luck come my way here at the end of the race. So let's just go past that car into the braking zone. And as we come through the final corner, this is the final lap. We're just going to spot a car off on the left-hand side. And there it is. And that was one of the cars in front, not a lapped car. So we do actually gain a position. And believe it or not, as we see the checkered flag in our first ever race, finished in P6, would you believe? So not a bad race. We moved forward from our grid slot of 9th. And actually, it was a lot of fun. Okay, so for the second race, courtesy of finishing in P6, we start P6 for this one. So a little bit further forward. It'd be really cool if we could move even further forward in this one and have an even better result. Out of about 40 cars, I think it was 35 or 40 cars. So I'm quite pleased to be this far forward. I know it's only the Clubman Championship, it's the second division if you like. But still, quite happy to be this far forward. So we've got to try and nail this start. Make sure we get a good launch off the line here. Lights go on and the lights go off. And this time, let's see the launch. The car on the left actually got a good launch. I got sort of average launch, I would say. Don't really lose the position as such. So we're gonna settle for that. And we've got to be mindful that the tyres, the brakes, everything's a little bit cold at this point here. So we've got to be fairly careful. We do actually lose a position there to the white car. Go fairly narrow here into turn number 3. And just like the previous race, we're going to try and settle down, avoid the carnage, avoid barrier, and have a nice fun race. Try to get to the finish as well, ideally. Right, out onto the main straight. You can see just how close the cars are behind. So it really is bumper to bumper. People not afraid to get very, very close indeed. And it's quite hard, therefore, to judge your braking point when it gets this close. So I'm just going to lift off slightly early for a bit of a security measure to make sure we don't go into the back of the car in front. Blue car on the left-hand side tries it, fails it, doesn't quite make that one work. We've got a car almost on the right-hand side, and then he actually switches over last second to go up the inside. I tried to fight this one around the outside. Have I managed to do it? Yes, I have. It was a brave late move there from that car behind. Didn't quite make it work though. So we're here in P1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're in P7. We've lost one position after one lap. I was just trying to break away from that group behind. You can see the top 4 have edged clear by this point. So in a battle for 5th here, P5 would be pretty good. Top 5 would not be a bad result at all. Let's see if we can do it. Let's make sure we be a bit more patient this time and not rush this overtake. So I kept with this battle. As we head down into Vale, going to make an error there. As you can see, very wide of the apex, losing control slightly. And the unfortunate thing was there is that the cars in front just managed to edge away. So these cars really rely on just sort of smoothness through the corner, getting on the power early. So it's almost like you want to brake really early, get the car really settled, and then power out of the turn really early. So slow in, fast out kind of really does work in these cars. And I felt like sometimes I was just pushing a little bit too fast, too hard into the corner, and the car was a little bit unsettled and I wasn't quite getting the exit I could have got. But at least I was very aware of where the speed loss was. So as you can see here, this race kind of went a little bit backwards. So we do a nice little switcheroo there on the white car. As we have lost touch with the other 2 cars up in front. So I've now been embroiled with this battle, these 2 guys instead. So he goes up the inside. I think that's the move he was trying to do on lap 1. Managed to make a success of it this time around. So fair play, good move. Side by side here, up the main straight. And this is quite a scary moment. We're just going to bump draft him last second. Just try and follow him through on the inside. Bit of a bump there. The car goes quite loose and it's quite a ropey little moment. when you lose in control of the car at about, I think, 100 miles an hour probably through that first corner. It doesn't really feel like 100 miles an hour when you're on a circuit, but it is quite quick. And then going into the back of the white car there, a bit of a mistake. Perhaps just fatigue setting in. I mean, I didn't feel particularly tired, but concentration wasn't quite there. And we get overtaken there. So one lapse of concentration, you lose a bit of time, you lose the position. And this was going to be a lot harder when I went into the top division, the championship races, because everyone was going to be on a higher level. So this was a good taster of things to come in the MX-5s. We see the checkered flag at the end of the race, finishing in P9. So P6 and P9, not too bad for my first couple of races in the MX-5s around Silverstone. Really enjoyed it, which is the main thing. And that was the end of the first day. We're going to jump in with the championship next up.
I know, monstrous, isn't it?
Okay, here we go then. P20 on the grid. So qualifying was a bit harder for this one. This is, you know, these guys here are very, very good drivers in MX-5, very experienced. So I think to qualify more than halfway up the grid was quite good for this top level championship of MX-5s. Quite happy with that. So let's see how this race goes. Once again, looking for the lights, a little bit further back than before. But eventually the lights go out, and this was my best start out of all the starts I had. As you can see there, gaining and overtaking this grey car on the left hand side. So before we even get to turn 1, I've already gained a position, courtesy of my best start of the weekend. So quite happy with that. P19 there then. And we're going to cover the right hand side here, as turn 3 is a right hander. We're going to force the cars to the left hand side, and therefore the outside, which isn't quite going to work out for them. And through the turns here, actually there is a car on my left hand side, just going to have to give the space. And this fighting here through this turn, as you can see, kind of opens up the gap. So here I was quite worried that we was going to get dropped. As I've mentioned a couple of times, you don't really want to lose the toe of the cars in front. Car behind gives us a bump draft, very helpful. So these next couple of corners are going to have to be quite good in order to catch back up with this group. But you see they're fighting, they're like 3 abreast up in front. Absolute chaotic scenes as many cars go wide beyond the track limit, come back on. As we head down towards Vale, very busy, very, very busy indeed. As onto the brakes we go. The car gets spun round on the left hand side there, gaining another position. So we gained 2 positions on our first lap here in the championship race. Not too bad. Look how close it is, 3 abreast just in front onto the main straight. Going to tuck into the slipstream. We're not going to go for this move here, I felt like that was a little bit risky. I'm just going to keep it nice and settled, play it patient. Let's not throw away a win, and of course we don't want to damage the car. We've got to pay for that. It could get expensive, so let's be nice and careful to some extent at least. You still have to push, but you don't want to damage the car. It's not my car. Well, I wouldn't want to damage any car, even if it was my own car or someone else's car. We lose the position. Good little move there, to be fair, from the grey car around the outside. And then we're going to get the run here. Am I going to get the slipstream of the car in front? Kind of, although it then moves left. I do have the inside line though for turn 1. Going in here a bit narrower than normal, so it's a bit different, of course, than taking the actual racing line. Going a bit narrow, not quite used to that, but didn't do such a bad job. We continue. And this is one of the problems I was having into turn 3. It's a thing called brake knockoff, where your brake pads kind of get a bit stuck, and sometimes they don't really work when you go into a big braking zone. So you might notice sometimes people just tapping the brakes on the straights. You might wonder why they're braking on a straight, but it kind of just re-engages the brake pads, and then you don't get the brake knockoff problem. So this is something I was trying to get used to. Just tapping the brake pedal in weird places on the straight, sometimes through turn 2 whilst going flat out through there. Tapping the brake pedal just to eliminate that problem. So kind of, this is one of the things I was really learning about these cars, because of course when you do sim racing, everything's so perfect, the cars just work perfect, every shift works perfectly. But when you're racing an actual car like this on an actual track, you know, it's not perfect. The shifts don't always work. You have to be very clean with every movement you do. And sometimes the brakes, you know, not always 100%. You do have to be quite mindful of that difference. So very, very close indeed. And here we go 3 abreast into the first corner. So very close indeed. You can see the difference, quite a very big difference between the Clubman races, which spread out quite quickly, and this level here in the main championship, where everyone's willing to race very, very closely indeed and push each other quite hard. So end of this lap here, Ray car goes very wide. Going to try and perform a switcheroo. Not quite going to work. Grey car goes in front. Bit of deja vu here, really. Going to try to follow him through. Green and yellow car all over the curb. So we're going to bump draft the car in front, try to push him through and follow him through and take this position back off of this green and yellow car. He seems to be our nemesis. We've been going back and forth past him for the entirety of the race. As you can see, he morphs back in front of me magically. The beauty of editing. Through turn 1, you can see that big moment through the first corner. Keep it under control. Car in front a little bit wide. You see the race is very much spread out now, as myself and this car, we became embroiled in a battle, and what that did was it just really let the cars in front just manage to get away, and once you lose the toe, it's very difficult to catch back up. Very, very difficult indeed. So this is why you really want to minimize fighting and start towards the front, so just qualify better ideally. Here's a good example of the toe. Down the back straight, we got a very similar exit, and I am just catching up here at the end of the straight. It's going to go very defensive. It is towards the end of the race now, so he's more mindful of just keeping his position rather than trying to move forward, and it was a successful defense in this occasion. Down towards Vale on the brakes. I was having problems with this braking point, to be honest. I think the braking was one of my weaker suits in my first experience of car racing. What I would say is that this whole experience was very, very fun indeed, and it sets up some very big things to come in 2022. As well, I'm not going to say what we're doing just yet, but we've got some big things coming, so please do look out for that. And if you're new to the channel, get yourself subscribed, because you just quite frankly have to see it. It's going to be very, very cool. Now this is the final lap, and as ever, we are in a good battle here with the yellow-green car. Can we possibly gain one more position and move forward slightly? I think I'm in about P18 right now. Therefore, having moved forward slightly from our grid slot of P20, car in front getting quite a poor run off of that corner onto the back straight. You're going to cover it, go defensive. Can I possibly get this one around the outside? Going to be quite a brave move. I do have the run and the momentum. He's still just about alongside. You can see him just pop into the rear view mirror there. Around the outside we go, side by side through Stowe Corner, and then still side by side. I have the inside. This is where things begin to unravel slightly as I go a little bit too narrow in. Massive hit on the curb, and then I felt like I had the line there as I was mostly ahead. The other guy had other ideas and comes back on. Big rejoin, big collision. I lose two positions. No, I lose two positions. And we finish, I think, ultimately P21 at the end of that race. So a bit of a disappointing end to lose so many positions right at the end there. But still, it was a good learning experience and good fun. Okay, one more race left to go. We'll get through this one quickly because this is where things didn't quite go to plan. Now you see that the launch wasn't very good. Well, it was okay, but this gear shift here, the gear just, I don't know what happened there. It just did not want to go in at all. And you see the result of losing that momentum. You lose about 10 positions very quickly. So that was an absolute disaster, it must be said. Wasn't sure exactly what happened there, really. But clearly lost a lot of time, a lot of positions. But it wasn't really to matter, as you see here through Hangar. Lots of carnage, plenty of cars stricken all over the circuit. and some cars in front of them taking the track limits to another level. Now this is where things began to really go downhill for me. Just watch the car in front, the grey car, as I'm not sure exactly what was going through his mind, but I know what was going through his front bumper, this tyre wall. And then eventually, as a result of that contact with the wall, he strafed sideways and we made contact. I tried everything I could to try to give him space, but he was quite sure about hitting that wall. And unfortunately what that did was it buckled the back left wheel, or sorry, the bumper, or the bodywork was rubbing against the tyre. As you can see, it made for a rather smoky cockpit. And I was a bit worried that it might catch fire or something. I managed to creep slowly back to the pit lane, and with the effort of our mechanics here at the Go4it MX5 Racing team,
You're taking a hit, it's shredded the tyre.
we had to turn the car off, but they managed to do a very quick repair to the wheel, actually changing the tyre and repairing the bodywork. So we went back out on the track, really just in an effort to try to finish as many races as possible. All I could do really though was go around very slowly, watch as the leaders came back through and lapped me for about the 8th time. And as you can see here, through the right-handers, making a horrible noise as the bodywork was still partially rubbing. But I did manage to creep over the line eventually and finish the race. And ultimately, I did get my 2 signatures that I could possibly get for this race weekend. So mission accomplished, really. And the main thing was that we got a good experience around Silverstone in cars. I really enjoyed it, and there's more to come in the car racing front in 2022. It's taken me a while to get this video out, but thank you so much for sticking through to the end here. And I hope you enjoyed it. Get yourself subscribed. If you're new to the channel, do drop a like. Let me know your thoughts as well about the racing and how it went. And if you have any questions, please do ask in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And a big thank you to my team, Go4it MX5 Racing, for supplying the car for this race. But that is it from me. Have a nice day. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.